Hi everyone, it's Deepa from New Zealand speaking to you again. It's only been a few days, I think, since I posted my last video. And then as it happened, an item I ordered on the TradeMe auction site, that's a New Zealand site that is similar to eBay. This item just arrived today in the post, and so I thought I would have a look at it myself and perhaps make a video so that others could see how these things arrive sometimes when they're sold as is, where is, and without having been test run or any of those sorts of things. It was purchased basically on the basis that I might be able to revive it, and so I'm going to give that a try today. Essentially, it's arrived with the note from the seller, which on the auction site said that this was purchased in the 1950s, was packed up in about 1960, and had not been opened since. So it had been an attic find, I think, for a relative when the original owner passed away. So that seems to be what's happened in this particular situation. It looks to me, and I'll just turn it over so you can probably see a bit better, that looking at the top side, it's probably been sitting somewhere, in actual fact, uncovered for a while, because it's picked up quite a bit of dust. And it does look complete, but the transfers are rather worn. You can see there on that side, and less so on this side, but still some wear, obviously. Underneath, it's a 3-rail loco. It's a Hornby Dublo 264 tank loco. I think it's an EDL 18 from memory. I'm just looking underneath it now to see if I can read the stamping, and it does say EDL 18 from what I can see there. Just underneath there it says that. So I'll want to see if this thing will actually run, even though it's been left unattended for a long time. And so that's going to be my first port of call. I'm going to put this into my loco holder device here and move it so that it's visible in the camera. I have got my trusty Triang power controller here, so I've just got some leads which I'm going to apply to it and just see if we get any signs of life just straight off the bat. And this is after being boxed up and packed away, presumably for around 60 years. So that would be pretty impressive if we got something out of it. Actually, that was a start anyway. I'll try the other way. It's making an effort to get moving, which tells me that power is obviously reaching the motor and that it is in fact turning over. That's very good news, but if I kept doing that, I think probably somewhere along the way the effort of trying to turn what's probably a bit of a sticky mechanism might actually burn out the armature. So I thought perhaps the next step to take would be to dismantle it and just see what's underneath. So there's a body, a fixing screw underneath here. So I'm just going to undo that front truck there, and you may be able to see just in here that there is a bolt which comes out quite readily, and once that's removed, slightly sticky still, but it's still screwed in, I think. There we go, it's just loosened off now. Just remove that. The next step is to just lift the chassis from the body. And for those of you who are not familiar with Hornby Dublo products, they normally have a fixing screw at the front, and there's normally another screw or something else holding it in. In this case, it's there's a little slot into which this piece goes, and that holds the rear of the loco in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the body out of this cradle, because that obviously isn't relevant to getting the loco running. Put this loosely in here so the valve gear doesn't touch the cradle. And sometimes I find it's easier to remove this rear truck as well. I can't remember whether it's bogey and pony or pony and bogey for the official name for these. Someone will probably have to give me a reminder of that in the comments in relation to the relative names of this side, the truck that goes on this side and the one that goes on this side. However, we've now exposed a bit more of the mechanism. These are 3-rail pickups, in case you haven't seen those before. That's for the center rail. It picks up current from these outer tracks from one wire of the transformer, and the center wire of the transformer goes to the center there. So that's that. Usually looking at these, especially after a period of time, what you'll notice is that all the bearings are probably a bit dry. There's probably not been any oil applied to the armature bearings, and the valve gear is probably a bit dry as well. So I think maybe what I'll do initially is just apply a couple of drops of oil to the area of the armature bearings in particular, and see if that makes a difference, and we'll go from there. I've got some Singer sewing machine oil which I've been using, and that seems to work quite well. So they say any light oil is okay, but I found sewing machine oil works quite well, so I'll just apply some oil just into that upper bearing directly to it. And then there's a tricky one to get to down here, which is, you can often access it just in that little gap there, and that's the lower bearing. Not entirely sure that I got quite enough oil on it, so I'll just put a little bit more on. They say 1 or 2 drops would be the maximum. And what I'm wondering is whether just that small step has actually now enabled this thing to run a bit better. So I'll apply some power to it and see what happens compared to the previous slightly sluggish and difficult bit of movement that it made. That's not particularly improved, to be fair. It will run, but obviously not very well. Next step is to apply oil to the other bearings, which are going to be in here where the drive gear is, and in all of the spaces where the axles are, to see if that'll free up the mechanism a bit. So I'll just give that a try next and see what happens after that. I'm just applying 1 drop to the handy toothpick that I'm using, and I'll put those into position for the other spaces as well. This oil should, because it's a light oil, it should drift down into the axles just by gravity. So let's see what happens after that's been done. This axle actually is exposed. I can actually see it from here, so I can actually put a bit of oil onto that from the exposed side as well. And I'll apply power again, see what happens this time. That's a bit better. It's obviously not wildly enthusiastic though, but it's definitely making some effort now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just lift that up and just have a look and see if there are any other areas which I could oil, because that usually is the main thing that gets these locos going. Now it is possible the magnet is weak after all this time, but it's actually holding my screwdriver really firmly there. I don't know if you can see that, but it takes a fair bit of effort to lift that off, and even over the armature itself, that's got a fair bit of magnetism to it. Same on this side. So that's one thing. The other thing sometimes of note is that there's a little shunt device here, which was designed to increase and decrease the effect of the magnet. I think it was designed in the old days to make it the locos a bit more controllable with less capable transformers. So I've just released that a bit, just so that there's a slight change in the magnetic field when that's done, and we'll see what happens then, which may make a difference, because it's clear to me that the magnet seems to be pretty good. And off it goes. So that's one direction. We'll try the other. Doesn't like going that way so much. So it may need just a bit of running, or it may need a bit more freeing up. I'm suspecting that the valve gear is probably a bit dry as well. So I might just apply some oil to that on each side and see if that helps. Usually this makes at least some difference. So I'll apply some oil to those areas. My apologies if you can't quite see this perfectly on the video. I'll turn the loco over so that you might be able to see a little easier as to where these drops of oil go. I'll actually set it in there. And I'll try the side closest to me as well. A little bit more needed there. And last one. Usually I tend to also put a bit of oil on the cylinder gear as well, because that sometimes is a little dry, although it hasn't got a massive amount of resistance to it, but it's probably worth putting some oil on all those sliding surfaces. You don't need a great deal, I've discovered, but it tends to work quite well just with a small amount. It just needs to loosen up a little bit, so I'll try this side as well. And hopefully this will be all that it takes to get this thing running a bit better. And from there, I'm not quite sure what I'll do with it, but certainly it'll be nice if it was a good runner, and that would give me an opportunity to give it a test out on some track. That's pretty good in that direction. We'll try the other way. And pretty good in that direction as well. The other thing I've discovered that helps to improve things after these steps is, in fact, to clean the commutator on the armature. I'm just trying to show that to you. That's this part here, which often gets a bit grubby. Just with carbon from the brushes and sparking and arcing sometimes. So what I tend to do is to put now I'm not sure if you can see this, a cotton bud onto that, and you can just give it a wipe, just not requiring any solvent or anything at all. Usually a layer of dirt comes off, and you can actually the armature does turn just by moving it here, and that sometimes is another thing that does help. So having done that, actually I've just discovered it'll probably sit like that without the cradle, so you might be able to see things slightly better. See if I can move that into position a bit better. Let's see what happens now. Now it likes it even less. Wonder what happened there. It's going that way. That seems to be a bit better. We'll try it the other way. That's running in reverse. I'm picking that most of these locos ran in the forwards direction mostly, so they sort of bedded in, I think, running forwards. But I'm pretty happy with that. What I might do is just have another look at other aspects of things that could be sticking. There are not too many things that go wrong. And let's see what happens when I've done that. So I've just re-oiled a few areas, checked the armature and the commutator a bit further, applied a bit more oil to the moving parts, and I've now discovered that it's running quite well. And even in even in reverse it was running quite well, but forwards it certainly likes going that direction, I can see. So I think that's a successful recovery of an item which has literally been sitting for quite possibly 60 years. And it goes to show you that these Hornby Dublo products were certainly made very nicely, and that they, over the years, are quite durable. They'll sit there quietly, so long as they don't get overly damp, and they can be revived. I'm just going to make a decision about what to do with this loco next. I guess I'll put it back together and clean up the body and then give it a track test. So I may make a separate video on that. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this one. Hopefully it's been of help to some of you, perhaps those who are not familiar with Hornby Dublo. And on the basis of that, that may have given you a little bit of an idea of how easily you can actually get these locos running again, in general anyway, so long as they haven't been damaged or otherwise compromised. So thank you very much for watching. I will be back with a follow-up video, obviously, in relation to track running. And once again, thank you to those of you who've subscribed to my channel. Very grateful for that. And thank you for liking the videos, which does seem to make a difference for the videos going out to more people. And I will come back and see you in the next one.